Everton are playing it a little bit safe, where we want to put down, say, £3 or £4 million as opposed to putting down £10 million for a £15 million player.
Welcome back to another episode of the Premier League Predictor. Today we're going to be covering off Everton, and it's fair to say I think a lot of fans had written off Everton, especially at the back end of last season, but a certain Frank Lampard and a certain Richarlison also helped to maintain Everton's Premier League status. So we are blessed that today we are going to be joined by Mike from the Unholy Trinity Podcast. But before I kind of check in with Mike and more importantly, discuss about Everton, make sure you subscribe to our channel, give it a like, and let us know your comments as we go along. And also, if you haven't already done so, check our other episodes. Our last one on Billy with Aston Villa, but we've done a whole host of different teams so far on this series. So we really appreciate your support where you can as well. But Mike, really glad to have you on this particular episode to talk about Everton. So we might as well just get into it and discuss the season that just happened. I get the sense that with Frank Lampard, there was a lot of unity brought on from the set of results towards the tail end of the season. But I think, obviously, it's been a bit frustrating for Everton fans in the last few seasons. Do you think it's just boiled over last season in particular?
I think so. I think, you know, if we go back to last July when a certain other manager was appointed, I know obviously we're going to speak about him, unfortunately, let's get him out of the way. It was when he was brought in, you know, he certainly didn't unify the fan base. There was a lot of negativity. However, fans did say, you know, that there's no point in going down that negative route. We've got to try and back the manager. Otherwise, it's to the detriment of our team. So we tried to back him as best we could, but you know, I think it became very, very difficult pretty early on. And really, as far as we're concerned, he should have gone sooner. He shouldn't have been appointed in the first place. That's the first point. But yeah, he was, and he should have been removed from his post earlier. And I don't think we would have found ourselves fighting for our lives in the last week of the season as we did. So I think the decisions from the top have been poor for quite a few years. And that just really compounded things. I think bringing in a former Liverpool manager who his best days are well and truly behind him. He's now to the Premier League for a number of years, and he gets brought into Everton. You know, you probably all saw the bed sheets outside the ground and things like that, and that tells you all that you need to know before he even came in. But yeah, it's certainly a stain on our history, I would say, and something that we don't really want to be a good piece of going forward.
So let's talk briefly about also the chairman then, because I've seen a lot of discontent about his leadership. And I think it's just drawn upon by the fact that there's been a lack of guidance around what he's trying to achieve potentially at the club. And I don't know if that's the right words, but certainly I felt like last season in particular highlighted this by the fact that you got rid of your director of football at the time as well. A lot of decisions, for example, like player signings and the likes of Lucas Digne, obviously, he was shipped off to Villa, and a few days later, Benitez is himself sacked as well. And I got the impression that just the club lacks any kind of sort of direction. I appreciate he chucks a lot of money at previous managers to try and fix it. But I think one of the common comments that came across was that team was about multiple different managers' ideologies and kind of styles of football. So actually, there was no kind of team ethic, so to speak. I don't know if that's really harsh, but certainly from my point of view, you could see there's not kind of a identity that potentially you would have seen with the Moyes-like Everton. And I think I can only identify that Moyes, potentially maybe Martinez to an extent, I would say, as a style of football. Apart from that, then looking onwards, maybe to an extent, Ancelotti was trying to do something. But yeah, what about last season? Do you feel that identity was just lacking completely?
The identity's been missing for many, many years. I mean, you can go back to the David Moyes era. You can go back, like you say, to Roberto Martinez. And, you know, he played a certain brand of football that in season one, where it was very, very attractive, very, very quick-paced, a lot of youthful players. And a lot of sides didn't know what they were going to face when they came up against Everton. Into the second season, we got worked out and he had no plan B. And that was obviously Martinez's that was his fall down, really. But
yeah,
I think, you know, since those times, managers haven't been given time in some cases. Some managers have been given too long, and other managers have been appointed incorrectly, and they haven't been the right people to bring in. I mean, I had a conversation today with one of the other lads from the podcast about Carlo Ancelotti, believe it or not. And, you know, we both believe that he was brought in probably 2 or 3 years too late, in terms of, if you gave Carlo Ancelotti a bit of a war chest with the contacts that he's got and things like that, it would have been a totally different story. The fact that he came in and he was given money to spend, but after that window, we were then right on the line, then, in terms of the profit and sustainability rules of the Premier League. So, you know, it was the wrong time almost, and I think he knew, you know, I know he went to Real Madrid, but I think what he did, he knew the situation coming up in the summer, and the fact he couldn't spend £100 million, and that was him gone. But the identity's been lacking, as I say, for many, many years. There's a lot of dissenting voices towards the majority shareholder Farhad Moshiri. There's a lot of dissenting voices towards the chairman Bill Kenwright, who's overseen, as many people will point out, you know, the longest period of failure in the club's history, if you like. So there's a lot of issues there. It boiled over last season. If you know, going back to when Benitez was still there in and around December time, and there was a lot of protests, fans sitting after the game, and a lot of that was aimed towards the board. And Marcel Brands was a little bit of a fall guy in all that. He was removed from his position. And he's recently come out and said, you know, how difficult it was to operate in that environment where you've got the owner sticking his oar in, you've got Usmanov sticking his oar in, you've got managers wanting to buy players. And when you've got a director of football model, you've got to trust that person to come in and do the job and mould a football club and give it exactly what we're talking about now. And that's an identity. And that's what we've lacked. And that's what we're hoping going forward with Frank Lampard and Kevin Thelwell, that we can actually discover what our identity actually is and have it running throughout the whole club, from, you know, young lads playing all the way through to the, you know, 12s, 14, 18s and up to the 23s or 21s it is now, and the main team.
So let's talk a bit about Lampard then. What's your thoughts so far about the style of football? Because I appreciate when he was at Chelsea, it was all about total football to an extent, but I think they lacked conviction sometimes, and certainly defensively they were a bit short at times. Whereas at Everton, I feel like it was almost like the last chance for the saloon in terms of his kind of career chances in the top flight football anyway. But from his style of football, it seems like he's kind of got a little bit of everything in that Everton team, you know, the grit, the determination. I don't know if half those signings were Lampard signings, to be fair, but I mean, I sense that he's trying to embed that, and going forward, he's trying to make sure that they are a team that is probably competitive as the best they could be. But yeah, your thoughts on Lampard in particular? Do you feel like he brought a credible source of football to you guys?
He started off, obviously, we started off with the cup win against Brentford. We beat Leeds and we played 4-3-3, and we all thought that was the way forward. And then obviously we took a little bit of a turn in terms of our form. Injuries hit again, and he couldn't then really play that formation going forward. And because we were where we were in the league, we had to play a system where we just became difficult to break down. That's all that we could do with the players that we had. You know, people forget the players that we had injured last season for long periods. It's no excuse, and we're not going to obviously fall back on that. But when you lose, your striker who scored 20 goals a season before, it's a big loss. You know, from August to April time, we didn't see him. We just didn't see him. You know, Richarlison had a couple of injuries along the way. We had obviously Donny van der Beek comes in. I gets injured for medium term. Alana had an injury. Decore started the season really well, then got injured. Our best centre half was constantly injured in Yerry Mina. You know, Luca Dean falls out with Benitez and gets sold. You know, you can't go on either moving your best players on and not replacing them with quality, or having your best players injured. So Lampard had a difficult situation that he was brought into. He had to go into a formation where he played 5 at the back, and it was just needs must, and it was be difficult to beat and see what we can try and get on the counter, and use set pieces wisely, go long sometimes and look for a knockdown. And it wasn't attractive, it wasn't great football, but it was just what we had to do at that particular time. And I think we'll see a little bit more this pre-season in terms of what Frank Lampard plans for the season ahead. Interesting to see who we can bring in to fit into the system that he wants to play, which is more important. But I don't think we can take too much from what the style of football last season, because of the fact that we were in such a poor position. He had to do something to try and keep us in the league, which obviously in the end he did.
So let's move on to those kind of transfer wish lists and the players that you have bought in. So far it's James Tarkowski on a free from Burnley. That's been confirmed. Looking at speculation, it doesn't seem to be a lot, but I think a lot had to ride on selling players out. So Richarlison is now out the door with Spurs. And I've seen speculation with Armando Broja, who was on loan at Southampton last season, potentially to replace him. We've even seen today that Morgan Gibbs-White, who is currently at Wolves at the moment, linked with a £30 million move. But apart from that, I think it sounds like we're waiting for some more moves in the transfer window as we speak. We'll caveat this by saying we are recording on the 11th of July right now, so it is quite still early before the season actually starts. But one of the questions I was going to ask you, Mike, is do you think there'll be some more introductions of the younger players into this team? So I'm thinking the likes of Nathan Broadhead, who had a really good season at Sunderland, for example. We've got a few players that come back from loans, the like of Jean-Philippe Gambin, who's been at CSKA Moscow. Appreciate he's not a youngster, but potentially someone that could go into the mix. And then you've got Ellis Sims, for example, who came back from Hearts. Maybe he could break through. So what's your thoughts generally around what's happening so far in the transfer market?
Yeah, I'd say it's probably expected. I mean, we knew we had Tarkowski nailed down quite early on. We just wouldn't announce it because Burnley are talking to us in a manner of speaking. It's, quite a childish approach, really. It's a professional business, but that's where we are. So we knew that one was done quite early, and it's a sensible signing. We had to shore things up at the back. He's a centre half who plays 35 to 38 games every single season for the last 5 seasons or so. So for us, bringing someone in like that who knows the Premier League, who's solid, and who will be there consistently, it's a good thing. So as I said earlier on, Mina, he didn't get many games in last season. He struggles for fitness. He got, I think, 13 games last season, and that's just no good. So we had to look at that, and he could be out of the door if someone wants to take a chance on him. But big wages, not guaranteed to get past up to 20, 25 games a season. He's a gamble for anybody. So yeah, it was expected. We knew Richarlison was going to go. It was nailed down in time for the end of the last financial year, which is what we had to do. And what we said to the Premier League that we would do as well. They've been looking at our books very, very closely, and we said that we would sell one of our big name players by the end of June. So we've done that. We've got some wiggle room now around sort of 25 to 30 million quid, we think, to spend in this window. The issue that we've got is when we're approaching clubs at the moment, Everton are playing it a little bit safe, where we want to put down, say, £3 or £4 million as opposed to putting down £10 million for a £15 million player. So we don't want to put down too much to give ourselves a little bit more room, because we've still got to bring in another 4 or 5 players. So it's going to be interesting. We've got to play the low market. We've got to look at the odd free transfer, maybe, which we've done with Tarkowski. But I probably expect us to bring in maybe 1 or 2 cash purchases, I would think. And the rest will be loans or free transfers. And, we mentioned a couple of names there. A couple of names linger and have been, in and around. We mentioned Emmanuel Dennis is another one who we keep on seeing from Watford, but they wanted £15 million on the table. Everton aren't going to pay that £15 million. Plus, they don't like us either after the Marco Silva debacle all those years ago. So I think they're just playing hardball. So we'll see how that one develops. Gibbs-White, another one, the last sort of week or so, it's ramped up. We're certainly in discussions with Wolves. I think talks of 25 to 30 million pound wide of the mark, to be honest. From what I've heard, it's not that much. So it's going to be an interesting summer. Evertonians are getting frustrated because they're seeing other clubs buying players. And I say to everyone, you can't compare to other clubs. There's still 3 clubs who haven't signed a player in this window yet. There's another 4 clubs who've signed 1 player. So let's not get too carried away with all that. We just look at what we do ourselves. But we've gone to America as we speak today. We're going to play Arsenal over there. We're going to play over in Minnesota as well. And a lot of the youngsters have gone. Lewis Warrington's one to watch, was on loan at Tranmere last season. Big step up though from League 2 to the Premier League. Ellis Sims, you mentioned, I think he'll be back out on loan again, to be honest. Jared Brantwaite's had some first team action. He's stayed at home because he's going to be joining a side on loan very, very soon. Same with Lewis Gibson. Tyler Onyango, he's going to be loaned out, so he stayed at home. But there is a few youngsters who've gone over there for the manager. He wants to look at these players. And it all depends, the transition from League 2, League 1, Nathan Broadhead had a decent season. But again, I think he would probably look to sell him because he's in the last year of his contract, to be honest. So I think he'll be sold. I don't think he's Premier League level. But there's, it's for the manager to see these players. He hasn't seen them at all because he's coming in January. And it's his first chance to see some of these youngsters and see what they can try and do. Some may shock him. I think Lewis Warrington finished in the top 5 in the fitness tests when he came back to pre-season, so he's impressing already. So if 1 or 2 of them can step up and make the transition, then you can save yourself a couple of quid in transfers as well. But early days, let's see how the pre-season starts off at the weekend over in America.
And is there a particular position that you'd like Everton to maybe focus on when it comes to those transfer dealings?
It's got to be a number 6, really. Someone to sort of sit in front of that back 4, offer more protection than what was offered last season with Allan and Decore, Tom Davis. You've got to have someone who's in there who's mobile, got legs, who's athletic. We can play the ball out. He wants to receive the ball off the back 4. Because sometimes, I'd say both Allan and Decore struggle with that side of things. And, if you don't want the ball, you find yourself having to go long all the time, which, quite often the ball just gets turned over really quickly and you find yourself out of possession once again. So we've got to get players in who want the ball. I know Frank Lampard's keen. I go back to one of his first training sessions and he was basically saying to the players, enjoy the ball. Don't be afraid of having the ball. You're free to enjoy it. Let's play football. And there's a few ball-playing footballers in there. Dele Alli, if he can settle down, and apparently he's come back into pre-season and is as fit as a fiddle, in really, really good shape. So maybe if you drop him in just behind Dominic Calvert-Lewin, then that's an option. So there are some talented players in the squad, but it's getting more talent and more quality within the squad to ensure that we don't find ourselves, when we have 2 or 3 injuries to main players, find ourselves struggling once again and in that sort of bottom 5 in the Premiership.
So, Mike, I'm going to push you. I appreciate it's very early in this window, but we're going to just assume that the window is shut. Where do you think Everton will end up by the end of this season?
I think we've got to be realistic. The days of push for European football are certainly in the past. At the moment, it's something that we should be aspiring to once again in the near future. But I think next season is going to come too soon. I think if we look to try and cement a place sort of 11th, 12th, I think that would be a half decent season. I think it shows signs of progress. It shows the manager hopefully has brought his style into the club and players are adjusting. And we've got a couple of years until we get to our new stadium, and that's not going to solve all our problems. But that's when hopefully we should have a lot more commercial income, certainly. The hospitality side, I'm sure there'll be more partners on board as well. The capacity is a lot bigger than Goodison Park. It's an attractive location on the waterfront of Liverpool there. So that will certainly bring people in. And, there's a takeover on the cards as well as we speak. So let's see where that goes. But, Frank Lampard's got a couple of years, I think, just to just cement our place in and around mid-table. I think try and progress each year, by 2 or 3 places if you can. And it's just about consolidation, really, as far as I can see it. We can't throw loads of money at the problem yet again. the income's just not there to do it. We had a great chance to really go out and buy players, a good few years ago, and let's get it right, we blew it. We paid too much for players that weren't of that standard. So I think consolidation is what we're looking for. 11th, 12th, I think I'll be quite satisfied. I think people need to really rein in their expectations for the next couple of seasons, and just hope that Lampard can bring some stability, and then he's the minded to take us into Bramley-Moore with a little bit more money to spend, a bit more maybe of an attractive proposition for incoming players as well, and then I think we will certainly be in a much better position to kick on in a couple of years, as long as we can just have some stability for the next two.
Yeah, no, certainly I get the feeling that he'll probably consolidate, as you say. I could see Everton being above that relegation zone, definitely, sort of in that kind of between, like you say, 12th to 15th place. I think you've got a few clubs that are in a very similar positions, likes of Wolves, for example, Palace maybe perhaps as well to an extent. So I think there's going to be a right mixture of clubs that are going to be competing in that mixture. Yeah, and then you have to remember we've got these promoted sides that may mix it up as well potentially. So yeah, going to be very fascinating. But Mike, really appreciate your comments, and more importantly to you viewers, make sure you drop your comments below. Let us know what you think. Do you think Everton will do as we expect, maybe mid-table? Let us know. But thank you, and we'll see you at the next episode.